What's happening, everybody? Good to have you guys back. It's a mod video for the YFZ, as promised. Now, don't mind the noise of the fan in the background. It's going to be there throughout the video because it's 11 a.m. and it's already 103 degrees here in Arizona. So, got to get cracking on it. But as you can see, we got a whole slew of parts that I've already gathered up that I'm going to put on this thing. Yes, some are the essential first mods. I've already got the flywheel bolts because I've heard those are prone to snapping. So I got those from LS4. Those guys sell a whole kit that's like $6. It's not much at all, but they're upgraded bolts. I think they're grade 10 or grade 12, whatever they said they are. But they're a stronger bolt, so hopefully that never shears off. I've also got, of course, a Hinson clutch, and I'm going to the conventional style, what was it, the 6-bolt? So I'm going to the 6-bolt clutch, so I get rid of that 3-bolt slipper clutch that comes stock on these. In fact, someone asked for it already, and I'm gonna make sure they get that thing. So that's gonna get swapped out, so we don't have any clutch issues with the stock slipper clutch. That's already pretty much pressed together. As you guys can see, I've already got the basket pretty much assembled. That was a pretty easy job. It's pretty quick. I just wanted to knock it out, make sure it's done so we can get right into the mods. It looks pretty easy, and then unlike Honda's, it's much quicker to get into the clutch cover, go straight through that thing, pull this all out, put it back in without having to remove the entire side of the case. But beyond that, we also have our exhaust. Went with an RP race exhaust. I love my Rossiers. However, if I'm going to be racing anywhere else where sound levels are a thing, 98 decibels, I believe, I want to at least get close with the RP race. I went with their standard. We're gonna run that thing. I've heard great things about RP race. They sound awesome. I've heard that on Ashton's Raptor. I really want to hear this thing on the YFZ. I've also got a billet intake plate from GYTR because I'm also interested to see how good the GYTR parts are from the factory. Why not run those? It's a slightly cheaper option than running a full FCI intake, or I really like the Vision Air 3s. Those look really good. However, I just want to replace what's in there real quick with a foam filter. GYTR sells basically a uni filter, and that billet intake plate looks real clean. Looks like it's going to work well. I don't really need much because I'm not doing many power mods anyway. Also, I have wheels and tires because I love my GVCs. I'm going to put those on there. I went with some Douglas rear bead locks because they're a little bit lighter than the other dual bolt pattern options. And I also have just a rolled lip front with some more GB3 front tires. I just like them. They work really well for me. Add a little bit of durability, I guess you could say. And then the beadlock wheels are pretty much a must for me. Other than that, there's not a whole lot more going on. I do have a stem coming. That's coming from Lone Star Racing. I think I just got the shipping notification today, so it should be on the way. I also have Phoenix handlebars. I love Phoenix handlebars. I'm going to make sure they get put on this thing. The bend and the sweep are so good. Everything's nice and comfortable. So without any more talk, let's go ahead and get into modifying the YFZ. So I figured if we're going to start with these mods, I might as well start with the big stuff first. We'll do the clutch, then I'll move over to the flywheel side. The clutch is pretty easy because all you really need is your gasket to replace that cover. Just the cover needs to come off and I can pull everything out. Also, if you're doing the swap, don't forget you're going to need all of these bolts now because you're swapping to the 6-bolt. Also, you need the bigger washer that goes inside the clutch there. And I just went and grabbed another one of these as well. This is your little lock washer. So I have everything I need, might as well get into it, and I got to do my first oil change anyway, so we're just going to knock that out, put fresh oil in it when we're all done anyway. There's 2 drain bolts on these YFZs. One of the other things that I like about these is that they use the same oil throughout the engine, so you don't have a gear case oil and an engine oil you have to go and grab. You could just run one type of oil. Hondas run your 85 weight transmission oil as well as, you know, your 1040 engine oil. All right, there's the first bolt. There's some really clean oil still. I may be changing it a little bit early, not quite at, you know, 3 hours or full break-in time, but I have ridden it pretty hard and at least a couple hours on it, so good time to change it since I'm swapping out all this stuff anyway. All right, got to get the other bolt. Meanwhile, while all that stuff is draining, we'll go ahead and pop the filter cover off. These are just little 5mm Allen heads. There we go. And the filter's coming out with it. Good. And you've got all your O-rings in here. So be careful that those don't come popping out with your cover. because you're going to lose those in the oil pan. And then let's rock the old oil filter off. Sheesh. Take a look at it real quick. Like I said, I didn't put a whole lot of time on this thing before changing this oil, but I'm pretty religious about changing oil anyway, so I don't see a bunch of metal shavings. It's been going through its break-in process. It's looking good. So we can clean this up and put a fresh one in. I also like the design that Yamaha has here, where they have your O-ring pressed into your cover and just plops on there, whereas Honda, it was an O-ring that ran around the outside and would have to feed in, and you would always cut it up on the edge of your cases whenever you're feeding that cover on. Just a slightly better design in my opinion. All right, get that bad boy back on there. Also, I like to do these by hand, and then I'll go back in and torque them because they really don't go over 7 foot-pounds. So you can really zip them in and strip threads all the time when you're using impacts. And I don't want to do that. Now we can move on to all these little 8mm bolts on our magnesium cover. Fancy. And I like to lay these bolts out in order that I take them out, because as you see, they're different lengths. So you want to make sure you get them back in the right spot. Get out of there, little guy. There it is. Good look at the slipper clutch inside these Yamahas. Let's go ahead and pull this gasket off because we're not going to use it again. These should be just 10mm heads. I'll try to do this evenly, because I know there's some spring tension behind each one of these. Let's see if we can get all of that at once. Yeah, all right. I still got the rubbers in there, but that's okay. Okay, now we should have the end of our little shift rod over there. Should be a washer on the end of this. Ah, and it's circlipped in. That's nice. Clever. All right, just use my little soft dead blow here to get that washer down. Okay, now we can spin this nut off here. Got a 30mm. Zips it right off. Another thing I like about this Yamaha is that main nut does not need to be cranked down as far as a Honda goes. I believe it's 54 foot-pounds, whereas a Honda is 80. So you really got to crank those nuts on the Hondas. I guess that's all coming with. All right. That's fine. Hang on to it. It's all coming out. Jeez. Okay, all right, I'm not a professional here. There we go. That tiny little washer. My God. Let me just show you real quick. Holy smokes. It's ridiculous. There we go. All right. And here's another part of the failure points. As you guys can see, you've got all these springs back here. Well, this backing plate, the OEM one, has a tendency to bend, and then these springs get shot out, and then it busts your inner case right here, which is no bueno. That's not what we want. So we're gonna go ahead and replace all that. There's your conventional with the Hinson replacement. And these come with cushions, which is actually really nice. And I've already pressed the OEM gear back in. So we have one from an 09. Some fresh oil in here on this bushing because that one hasn't been lubed in a long time. We're using Blood Lubricants 1040. So the weight is the same, but we're using some Blood Lubes because those guys are awesome. Okay, find the teeth, slide it all the way back. Now when you're putting this on, make sure you give this thing a little extra turn and it will sink in a little bit farther because there's 2 sets of gears over there it has to mesh with. And you'll know when you put this on and you can spin it. So you can get it past these teeth and then you can spin it in its little groove right there. Then you'll know you're all the way on and flush. Okay, now we've got time for our hub. Get that all the way in there. This goes to 54 foot-pounds. If you have one of these little crank it down style clutch holder tools, I highly recommend making it extremely tight with that little knob down here and then locking it down because they do flex a little bit right here. So I go pretty damn tight. There. Whew. Gotta go quick. Already had the fibers soaking in my clutch bucket. Sitting in 1040 for at least a day, which is good. So they're all soaked up. These go in, fiber first. And then it just goes alternating fiber, steel, so on and so forth until you fill it up. Now we have our pressure plate. All right. There we go. Slips right in there. There we go. These 2 shorties. And we'll zip these in. And no, before you ask, I do not have the Hinson clutch cover. They were on back order, so I'm still waiting on it. They said they'd get it to me whenever it shows up, but we'll just have to do with the OEM one for now. No big deal. And just like that, we're on to the other side. One thing I'm definitely going to do, I'm going to remove the shifter here. That's kind of a no-brainer. You got to do it because you have to remove all of this in order to change out your flywheel bolts. One thing I definitely want to do when I remove the shifter here, I'm definitely going to mark it from where it's at. I want to move it up, but I'm definitely going to mark where it's at for now. And then when I put this thing back on, then I can just move it a notch, get this thing just a little bit higher because it's definitely pretty low for me. So just take a little permanent marker and make a line from the shift shaft to the actual shifter itself. Then if you want to put it back, you just line those up, slide it on, tighten it up, you're good to go. Now I'm going to remove this little clamp here. And then get that breather hose off. Now just yanking all these little 8mm head bolts out of here. Well, now that we have the cover off, this is about a 24mm wrench you can use right here to hold on to, not the nut at the end. There's actually a spot right here where you can get that wrench in there. And we're gonna take all but 2 bolts off. Look like a good method. So we'll take all these guys out, and these are 5mm heads, so they are not torqued to a whole lot. I think they're only 7.2 foot-pounds. Surprise, surprise. Everything on here is like 7 foot-pounds. Watch out for that magnet. Got most of those off. I'm going to use just a little bit of red Loctite on these. Little dabble do ya. And then this little bag right here, literally like $6 or $7 from LS4, and you've got your upgraded bolts. Cheap insurance in my book. Now that everything is buttoned back up, time to fill this puppy back up. Time to fill it up with my favorite. Some blood, 1040. All right, now I'm just gonna start it, cycle a little bit of oil. Listen to that puppy purr. All right, enough of that. Yuck. We'll address that next. We sure could. Well, now that we got the bottom end stuff done, we're gonna move on to the easy stuff, but the really fun stuff. Got the boy in here helping me out. He's just supervising. So we're gonna move on to the exhaust, going with the RP. Always wanted to try one of these. I've heard nothing but good things. They make great power and they look awesome. The other thing we're gonna do, we're gonna upgrade the stock airbox, the GYTR billet intake ring, and the GYTR. It's a uni filter. It says GYTR, but it's uni, whatever. Anyway, we're gonna put those in there as well. You basically just pull the stock airbox out, put the ring in, and then you got yourself a nice foam filter and cage that you just plop on there. Should have a little bit better airflow for good things when they hop on the dyno with these things too. So I'm not making crazy horsepower. I don't have a ton of mods done to this thing anyway. I'm not diving into the engine, kind of leaving it as is. So I think this will be plenty for this machine, but let's hop onto the exhaust right now. You're so smart.
I mean this.
All right, let's start with the muffler. Ooh, those are nice. Clean. This thing is so low hour. What's that? What can you have what?
What can I help you with?
Oh, you want to hold this? Here, you can hold this really big, heavy muffler. Jeez, this thing is massive. Oh, get rid of that. It's a lot. There goes the header. And you know what? While I'm in here, I might as well get rid of the airbox as well. Let's pull that out. Also a killer feature, quick release plastics. These tabs make short work of removing the rear plastics. That was so easy. In the airbox, we'll see. But 2 bolts so far, and then I think I gotta loosen up the clamp down there, and I should be able to pop that out, hopefully. Hopefully that makes this a little easy. Oh God, like butter! All right, so we're gonna be getting rid of all this, and then it's gonna open up this just a little bit. You can see all the rivets here. All that's gonna open up just a little bit with that billet intake plate. Okay, I got all the rivets drilled out of the factory airbox, and I saw something pretty astonishing actually. The factory style riveted, you know, foam filter mount, there it is right there, compared to, here is the billet adapter. Quite a significant difference. When I paid for this, I also paid for the AIS delete and all that combined, and it came together, and it was still cheaper than buying like an FCI full intake or a Visionaire intake. I think Raccoon Racing also makes a billet adapter, however theirs is much larger, and I think you have to modify the box. This just bolts straight in. So I figured, why not try some factory performance parts, see what they can do. So this is an experiment, I guess, but it's a very nice piece, and just like this, ooh, and bolt it in. And the thing's pretty much ready to go. Then I can just oil the filter, put it on, put everything back together, and go, which is pretty nice. So let's get to it. Might take a little bit of shimmying around out here, but I'm getting everything to line up, so that's good. Anyway, I'll get back with you guys when it's time to put this thing on the machine. Sweet. I mean, That looks pretty dang good to me, man. All right, time to pop this thing back on there. Let's see if we can do this without dumping a bunch of dirt and sand down into our air boot, which would be killer. Get this past the plastics. Then we kind of just rotate it in there. Oh, look at that. Popped right on there. Beautiful. And now that I have some foam filter oil all over my hands, we're gonna go ahead and stick this thing in there. It's pretty nice. It comes with that pre-filter on it. Your main filter already has the cage in there. This was all part of the billet intake flange kit. It was pretty legit. Almost seems ashamed to have to do this, but I don't even know if I can. You can. It does, it fits. I didn't know if that filter was going to be too big. There we go. All right. Now it's time to put this bad boy on there. All right, I know I should really have a tune before I do this, and I'm not gonna leave it running very long, but I have to hear this thing. Let's do this quick. Probably not going to be happy. Woo! That sounds nice. Okay, I can't leave it running very long. That actually started a lot faster than I thought I was going to. I thought it was going to give me a little bit of trouble because it's going to be running lean, but one thing I definitely did before I started this up, I go ahead and I wipe down the exhaust, the whole thing, with some isopropyl alcohol and a rag to make sure that I get all of my greasy finger marks off it, and then it starts to turn a nice blue. It blues in really well and gets that nice color, but God, does that sound good. All right, I really need to get this thing tuned. I'm pretty much done with everything. I still got to do the little AIS block off delete, but I guess I'm really not worried about that right now. We'll get to that. I mean, it's crazy. This thing looks like a disaster right now, but it's because it's easier to get to the steering stem bolts that way. Whatever, we'll do it. It really wasn't that hard taking it all apart though, thanks to all those quick fasteners and everything on here. That was actually pretty easy. So let's hop on that. All right, we're pretty much done throwing the book at it. Now it's time to throw all the plastics back on, then I'll throw some wheels and tires on it, and then we'll roll this puppy out in the sunlight so you guys can get a good look at it, and then I can do a quick walk around. I can't do much riding. That'll come after the tune, and I'll have hopefully some video on some dyno runs and all that stuff. But she's pretty much ready to rock at this point, so let's get the plastics on. Well, there you have it. First mods on my 2024 YFZ450R. Now we went ahead and we took care of the essentials first. We solved that pesky clutch with a full Hinson billet-proof clutch and put that in. That doesn't take too long. It is important that you guys remember to get the 09 to 10 450R clutch because they do sell an upgraded 2014 and up clutch, which is still your slipper clutch with the springs and everything in it. So I went ahead and I went with the full conventional, 6 bolts, all that, the whole 9 yards. I'm going to be hard on it, so I went with something that I know is tried and true. I'm going to beat on it for a long time, and I hope it's going to last. I also came over here and took care of those flywheel bolts. Now, this I haven't seen a whole lot on, but I've listened to you guys. I pay attention. I know that some of those are prone to fail, so I went ahead and got the LS4 flywheel upgrade bolt kit. I think it's $5.95 or something like that, the one-way starter gear upgrade bolts. They're 12, like grade 12.9 or something like that. It's definitely stronger than anything that was already in there and probably stronger than anything I need, but went ahead and upgraded those to make sure that I don't have a failure on that side either. It's fresh gaskets, everything's put back together. And then we moved on to some other things, a little bit more bling, stuff like that. Added the RP Race full exhaust. It's the standard length. It's not the Pro model because I'd have to get a piggyback shock, or sorry, not a piggyback shock. I'd have to get a remote reservoir aftermarket shock to run that one because it does not have a dent to make room for the piggyback reservoir on your stock shock. So that's a little something to know. Also went with a Lone Star +1 up and +1 forward stem, and of course my favorite handlebars, Phoenix handlebars. They're just a comfortable bend, they're comfy in my hand, and I enjoy them. They take care of me. Also, I added just some normal ODI Rogue grips. I didn't do the lock-ons. I went ahead and wired these ones on because I wanted just a little bit tighter of a grip. I feel like the lock-ons are a little bit fat, so I went with these and wired them straight to the bars, and they're nice and stiff, and we're good to go. One thing that I did notice is as soon as I added this, even though the stock bars are higher than these, I think they're an 80mm rise, the stem extends so far that your throttle cable might get a little bit tight. I did go ahead and grab a Motion Pro +2 throttle cable. However, I noticed that I can still run this one. I think I'm right on the cusp, but I went ahead and threaded the adjuster in a little bit on the throttle housing, and I don't have any issues with the throttle revving up by turning the bars because it does tighten up your throttle cable just a little bit. So I'm gonna mess with it for a little bit. If I need to, I can add that Motion Pro cable because I think that's the only one I can find anyway, is the Motion Pro and a +2 cable. I also went ahead and threw some Douglas wheels, and the fronts I actually had a set of GPS dual bolt pattern, so they came off a Honda and they can fit right back on here. And of course my GBC ground buster tires. I got the Pros in the rear and the 3s up front. I beat the heck out of them and they keep lasting, so I love these tires. I go ahead and throw them right back on, and then I can go and rip. And then underneath the seat, what you guys don't see, is I went ahead and I added the GYTR billet intake flange, which I'm kind of curious. I want to see what GYTR parts are about. It's a factory part. I think it has a little bit of a factory warranty. I don't know, I just kind of want to see what kind of power it makes. I'm not going crazy here, but I did like the fact that it comes with the uni filter. So it's a nice foam filter upgrade, and it gets rid of that stupid little cone cage that came inside the airbox to begin with. So easy enough to take on and off. It's got a nice foam filter in there that I know is going to keep this thing pretty well clean out here in all the sand and things like that. That's the one thing I'm worried about. So I want to see what kind of power we can make with that. I haven't tuned this thing yet. That'll be the next video. I've already kind of got a plan going with Jeff up at Oregon Coast Power Sports. He's up there in Utah. I'm going to try to take this and the Honda, Randy Savage, up there and run them both on the dyno. He can tune this one, and I'm going to reflash the ECU. I don't see the point in spending all the money on a Vortex ECU when I can reflash the stock one and get it set for exactly what I have here. It's running on 91. It's got a nice pipe, good intake now. I kind of want to see what it makes with the parts that I've chosen. So that's it, essentially, everything that I've done to this machine. Hope you guys like it. Next time, you guys should see this thing on the dyno, and we'll see what kind of numbers it makes.